Hey guys, and welcome back to my shop. I am the convicted Christian. I am 7 years clean and sober. I did almost 10 years in prison. I am 8 years since my last release. 6 years, 7 years, somewhere in that region, 6 to 7 years, since I made it off parole. And I believe it is all due to God's love for me. Now, if you are a new viewer, today is Life Story Monday. And it's where I talk about the things that transpired in my life to help me go from a common criminal to a father, a husband, a contributing member to society, even if I still have those felonies on my record. So I make these videos so that if there's anyone else struggling with addiction, with thinking about, breaking the law or committing crimes, I hope that my experiences can be of some help, some guiding light, whatever you want to call it. And before we get started, and if you're a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. Thank you for sticking around. If you are a returning viewer, this one's going to be hard for me. And you'll clearly understand why upon listening, watching, however you're consuming this. Before I get started, something I haven't talked about is my 5 steps. So if you're a new viewer, I have 5 steps that over the years I have used to help me stay sober, help me stay clean, help me stay out of trouble. And even though I didn't really have a coalesced idea of it, I was still living these 5 simple rules out. It was just until recently, within the last couple years, that I've really put it down on paper. So it goes perseverance. That's actually 3. It goes accountability, responsibility, perseverance, healing, God, creator, something to believe in. I am a Christian. I believe in the God of the Bible. I believe in Christ, the Son. But a lot of this can be attained. A lot of this can be worked through with not being a Christian. You could even be an atheist. It's a lot harder because you're not giving yourself grace. You're not giving yourself room to interpret things that involve supernatural or a spiritual nature, and it definitely leaves you at your own power, which, like I said, can be done. It's a little harder to do it. And so that's the 5 steps that I used. And, I hope that if those sound interesting to you, you'll go back to my first 6 videos, because that's where I laid it out the first time. Now, if this is your first video of mine, you're in for a shock. And so, buckle up. Here it comes. Don't say I didn't warn you. But please, instead of whatever potential flash anger or frustration or comment, how about coach it as a question? I've learned that instead of blurting out the first thing that I think, posing it as a question instead of a statement has put out more fires, led to more understanding. And even if it still leads to a separation of you and that person, at least you're not separating out of anger, and you're not separating out of necessity. You are separating because it's the right thing to do. So, last I left off, I was living with my now ex-girlfriend. She had got some HUD assistance, or housing assistance, whatever you want to call it. In our area, we usually call it Section 8. or HUD. But I've heard Section 8 a lot more, or low income housing. I've heard of that a lot more. She's pregnant, and this is going to be the birth of my second child, and I was actually going to be able to be there. I wasn't there for my first child's birth, and it now it really tears me up. Having been there for the majority of my children's births, it definitely makes me wish that I had been there and I had been more involved. But at this point, I had stopped using. I was still drinking, but I had stopped using. And it felt like maybe this was the turning point in my life. That maybe I could finally do the right thing and I could be who I was meant to be. And so we were, it was me, my ex, and her child at the time. And I was still wasn't doing my hardest. I wasn't doing everything I could do, but I was doing more than I had before. And the funny thing is I look back and I go, if I dropped me, the me in this present, into that situation, with what I know now, all things would have been so different, so different. But I wasn't ready for that. So, we did what we could. I did my few odd jobs, a little bit of this here, a little bit of this there, enough to get us by, get us the few things that we needed. And her assistants would do the rest. Well, baby boy was born perfect. Not one complication. Just as big-headed as I am. And absolutely perfect. The relationship that me and my ex had was just as tumultuous as it was with my ex-wife. Constant arguments. I, at this point, did not know that a lot of my issues stemmed back to abandonment issues. And so, I was constantly afraid that she would kick me out. I was constantly afraid that she would break up with me. And so everything that I saw her do that was maybe against a decision of mine, or be it right or wrong, I took as combative. And so we were constantly at each other's throats. I don't think there was a time that we didn't argue. And as sad as it is to say, her daughter saw all of it. And no child should see that. Constant arguing. No real conflict resolution. And so, when my son was a month old, I got into a absolute rager with my ex. And ended up leaving. And she contacted me, and she said, if you don't come back, don't ever come back. So, finished the business that I was on, and went back, and our argument just raged even more. Until she ended up leaving. Because one of the things I was supposed to do while I had gone out was get groceries. And bring them back. We didn't have a car, and I didn't take the bus very often. So it was always typical of me being gone for quite a while. Even though the grocery store wasn't that far away, it was far enough away that I could justify being gone for a considerable amount of time. So she left. Unbeknownst to her, I relapsed. And I had taken some drugs. And now I am in charge of my month-old baby boy, and my ex's daughter. The drugs that I took were muscle relaxers. And while trying to take care of my son, he ended up falling. And because of the injuries of his fall, he passed away. And so, since I was the only one there, since I had a history of violence, not against children, just I had a history of fighting cops and running away and yelling at my ex-wife. I was clearly a suspect in what might have been at the time something more than a simple accident. And the way that it was explained to me is that even though it was an accident and it wasn't what was intended, one, me using drugs and being mentally impaired does not preclude me from conviction. And two, because of the use of mentally impairing substances, drugs, I should have known the accident was going to happen, and so blame is placed upon me. And so after a long time in county jail, a very, very long time in county jail, of back and forth between my attorney and the DA's office and the judge, 15 months goes by and I go to court. Well, it was 3.5, 4 days long court, and not unforeseen. I was found guilty, and I think that has more to do with the fact that it was a child, a very young child, than it had to do with the defense. Because I remember at sentencing, which was a couple of weeks, maybe a month later, I was still fairly in shock. Because this was, not only had I lost my son because of my choices to get high, I also lost my freedom. I lost what I thought was my, turning the other cheek, turning a leaf, whatever you want to call it. And for the first time, I was devastated at something that I had done. And I didn't know how to handle that. And so I was still pretty much in shock. I had tried to take some drastic measures so that my presence on this earth no longer, hurt the people that I hurt. Unsuccessfully. It's very hard to do that when you're being watched as closely as I was being watched. And the judge gave me one piece of solace. And he said that he did not believe that the guilty verdict was the right one. But because of the way the case is and the way the appeals court works, he's not going to overturn it just for it to be re-overturned, and then I potentially get even more time than what he gave me. And so he said that as much as I don't think you deserve to go to jail for this, this is the best I can do. And I was absolutely blessed with the judge that I got. He gave me 10 years. I'm 6 in, 4 out. and the DA was asking for 45 in, 15 out. Looking back, I don't know, honestly, if having gotten a not guilty verdict would have actually been to my benefit. Getting that guilty verdict changed my life in a way that, if you combined everything that happened in my life, didn't even come close to that one event. Not just the guilty plea, I mean the whole situation, the whole thing. And for 15 months, I just raged against myself. I I could not say a single nice thing about myself. I I hated myself. And I this isn't for pity. This is what happened. And like I said, I did try to end it a few times because I felt that I no longer had anything of worth to bring to the world. I no longer had anything of substance, and everything that I had just hurt people. And in this time, I I read the Bible with more skepticism than I ever have and ever had up to that point. Because how can someone that is made in the image of God get high while trying needing to watch their children and something happening to the children? I was supposed to be the protector of those two children, and I wasn't. And now I no longer have contact with my ex or her daughter or her family or anyone from that side. I lost some of my friends, which I'd probably leave too. It's something, it's hard to accept. And now at this point, the only people I had to lean on were my parents. And I can't even imagine how difficult it was for them to have to go through this. Something that I never thought I would see, because up until this point, I still had a very, um, I still had a slightly contentious relationship with my stepfather. We still, would go back and forth on certain topics, and we didn't see eye to eye. At least not anywhere near like we do now. He stepped up big time and really stepped in my corner. And my mom never stepped out of it. I credit them and God keeping me alive. And something that I've learned is that after something like this, One, I don't want the pain to really go away completely, because pain cements memories. It's the reason why we don't touch hot stoves. It's it's the reason why we put so much emphasis on love, and it's why we strive so hard to keep those that we care about close. But with time, it definitely made it a little easier to talk about. And the funny thing is, I could probably count on my hand how many times I've actually talked about this aspect of my life. And um, so yeah. So I got sentenced to 6 years in and 4 years of extended supervision with time credit. So I ended up only having to do 4.5 years in prison. And I wasn't once I got to a point where I stopped trying to hurt myself, I wasn't ever going to be that man. The reason why that I say 7 years clean and sober is because I've from that day I never touched another drug. And that was in 2000, well, let's see. 23, 37. It's 14 years ago. So 2010. So 2010, I have not touched a drug, so 14 years. But I drank when I got out, after the complete 6 years. But anyways, I was never going to be that man again. I was never going to let my choices cause that much pain to others. No matter how hard I had to change, no matter how hard I had to accept who I was going to become, and no matter how hard I had to work to make other options available. I was never going to be that man again. And because I chose to make those changes, that's the thing that a lot of people don't really pay attention to. You choose to make the changes. It's not that the changes come along and you're just like, oh, whatever, willy nilly. Changed again. That's not how it works. Now, there are things that come along in life that can change you if you allow them, and they're not a conscious following or chasing down of that change. Absolutely. And I chose to make the changes. I chose this time in my life that I either need to step up and do the best I can, or I need to leave this planet. Because if I'm not going to do the best I can't possibly justify being here anymore. And I catch myself slipping every now and again. I don't want to come out to the garage and make something. And yes, is that increasing my wealth? No. Is it making my wife's life better? Sometimes. And it's not always for my kids, and it's not always for my wife. Sometimes it's for me. But sometimes we need that time to be by ourselves. I think that's what prison did after my son passed away. Is once I got to a mind that was a little more stable, I finally had a long enough time of peace, of long enough time of, okay, you need to change. I will take all distractions away from you, and you can change if you choose to. And so I think that without this time and without the mindset that I had, there's no way that I could be sitting here talking in front of this phone, because I would have already messed up again. I would have messed up immediately after. So I think that's where we're going to leave it off. This is a hard video for me. I tried to hold it together during the telling of it. And I hope that for those that think that I have no remorse, I just wanted to get the story out without having to stop too many times. Every year that my girls get bigger, I imagine what my son would look like, where he would be in life. And I know the year he's born, so I know exactly how old he is. And I see other boys around that age. And I imagine that could be my boy. If it hadn't been for my decisions. But I didn't want to hide this part of my life. It could have been easy. I could have jumped ahead. But I feel like that would have been disingenuous. And it wouldn't have been right. Because if I'm to tell you that your life can come back from something incredibly hard and something worse than you can imagine, then I got to tell you about the things that are imaginably hard and worse than what you think you can come back from. And I know that there's going to be some hate. I know there's going to be some vitriol, some anger. It's okay. Send it my way. And I don't say that out of pride. I don't say that out of ego. If it's sitting on your heart, send it to me. Take it off your heart, and I will gladly accept it on top of mine. Because I don't want anyone to have the type of hurt and pain on their heart that I had. And if this video brings that out and brings it to the surface, I'll gladly take it. So hopefully you can heal. I'll gladly accept it if it means that you get to move on from whatever pain you're going through. I don't know where these videos are going. I don't know if this channel's going to amount to anything. But if for only one it makes the world change, watch out, world. We're going to change you. So this is it, guys, for this video. Always remember, if we're going to change the world, we have to let go of the pain so we can change ourselves. Take care. I hope to see you guys Wednesday. And always remember, someone's there for you. Reach out if you need it.